Hi there, everybody. Dr. Paul here from my own Substack. I only have a few minutes here, but I just had an interesting conversation with a friend about, and it wasn't Jeremy, about the podcast with Scott Galloway on it and one of the executives from Hinge, the dating site, on Diary of a CEO, which was an amazing, just lengthy, data-filled podcast. I'll post it again in this post. We have a lot of people joining too. If you have anything to say, you can feel free to chime in. It's only going to be a few minutes here, though. I wanted to kind of pick your brains about a topic that they kind of peripherally mentioned on the Galloway podcast, and it was the topic of housework. Very briefly, they mentioned it, and it came up in the context of how the populace has vastly changed, at least in America and the UK, where males are making less or are just jobless. At least in urban areas, females are doing better. And then what does that do for them pairing up and dating? Because one of the drivers appears to be that women do prefer men to make a certain amount of money to even be in consideration. And then on top of that, they added height, that something over 90% of females dating listed that they had a filter for men have to be over 6 feet tall, and that's only 11 to 14% of the populace. If you multiply by making over $100,000 a year, that equals 2 point something percent of men qualify. And this is the vast majority of female daters. I don't want to get into the dating aspect though, because part of what that led to in their conversation, and I will post their podcast below, it's that the females that make more are going to find themselves sorted into according to their rightful preferences. You prefer what you prefer, but they would prefer a male to make good money, but there'll be less and less and less available. And they talked about college enrollment dropping precipitously for males. So males are going to make less and less in the future. So the dating pool available is going to be very scanty for this 2 point something percent. So what will happen, according to the female executive from Hinge, is that the females will figure, well, if it's not going to be money that is contributed, there needs to be some contribution, since I make the money. And why not have it be emotional intelligence? Okay, that's fair. That's just a synonym for maturity, by the way. It's a very old idea to become a mature person. That should be easy to find and cultivate. But what else? Well, it's really onerous, the labor around the home, because if the woman is going to work every day, high power job, very stressful, does she really need to be dealing with doing housework, doing dishes, cleaning up, taking care of children? So then all the males, it sounded like I'm inferring from her talk, all the males will be able to contribute is the formerly traditional, female roles and tasks, which would be fine and sound fair, depending how does that make the male feel. Now, here's where I have something to weigh in on, and I mean this, quite fairly and scientifically, not stridently. Most of the males I have always known tend to have a messy sink and probably have never used the dishwasher. And I don't know this to be statistically perfectly true, but every male I've ever met who was a bachelor had a kind of a dirty sink or nothing in it, and definitely never used the dishwasher and preferred to eat out. I know I was that way previously. Now, um, the evolutionary psychologists weigh in here, and Galloway is speaking to. He's borrowing from some of the principles of evolutionary psychology, David Buss and the rest, maybe even Rob Henderson. So, um, where do we go with the evolutionary psychology material? Well, now this is where we dig into some research. I remember a paper I read. It was fascinating. It was about brain anatomy, and it was about what does testosterone do when injected into males and females. And what it came up with is a heightened visual acuity, visual. And I thought that was interesting. At their theory, they posit is that evolutionarily that came from males with more muscular bodies being the hunters, having to go do dangerous things like fight wars and hunt big game or what have you, bring it back to the village, that they needed better visual acuity to be able to spot potential prey or the enemy. So that's interesting. Men are visual, but they're also outer directed. Instinctually, their passions and their efforts tend to, again, instinctually, unconsciously. What Jung, here's where you bring Jung together with evolutionary psychology. Jung, with his masculine archetypes and feminine archetypes, simply mean masculine and feminine instincts, that they are inborn and that they're built into the brain, into the wiring. They're biological. They're not learned at all, although they can be tweaked and redirected in ways by sociology, which is outside of us. It's what's going on in the prevailing culture. How do I fit in socially into my environment? But the environment is not you. You are you. You have psychology, which is like software, and you have biology, which is inherited and is not going away for another 1 to 200,000 years. That's you. But then sociology is outside of you. It's not part of you. So what does this mean for housework? I'll start with an example of me doing dishes. I do a lot of dishes, and I do it out of care and love and wanting to be empathic and satisfy my family, make them feel good, help them out. I notice when I do them though, my sights are still directed outside the house. They're directed toward career, toward income, toward safety for the family, toward the future. It's outer directed, absolutely positively outer directed. When I was a bachelor, I had a not a messy sink, just an empty sink. I just ate out every meal. I couldn't stand to eat in. I wanted to be social. I wanted to meet people. I wanted to discover new places to go. And so when I do dishes, I do it out of care and love and respect, but it doesn't feel good at all. And it's not about labor. I don't mind the heaviest labor nonstop, such as through COVID, when I worked almost every day of the week, all through COVID. So it's not, I don't mind labor, but it was the type of labor was interior in the home, not outer directed. Back to the visual cortex and the testosterone creating higher visual acuity to be out in the world, in the wild, outer directed. So, how does this all piece together? And somebody's writing to me, Generale, relates to my parents, mother and father were, yeah, so high power mother, father is more domestic, I suppose. So, yeah, thank you, Generale. Um, I want to get to what I felt was like a solution. I was watching Galloway and this person from Hinge and Diary of a CEO, lead podcaster, and I wanted to solve everything. And here's what I would propose as a solution for explaining all this. It is unfair for women to have to work full-time, high-power job and then do all these other tasks too. Males who make less or are home, doing domestic things, if they like that and prefer that, great. Then that's a match made in heaven. That guy is probably way out on the tip of the bell curve. It's not average at all. And the reason for this is there are masculine and feminine instincts. They're real. It's the same as Jung's archetypes. And research is now starting to come out in evolutionary psychology and general psychology, supporting the fact that there are indeed instincts unique to each biologic sex. And we call them, use the words every day, not every day, but a lot, masculinity and femininity. We've used those words for forever, and they're real. They're not made up, and they're not cultural. They're not sociological. They're biological in the sense of an epiphenomenon into the psychology, and what they equate to, whatever words you want to use a generic word that means both masculinity and femininity. It would be the word passion. Passion for life, passion for your partner. Um, it goes back to Darwin, who talked about not survival of the fittest, but surviving long enough to reproduce. Survival and reproduction was the equation, right? The famous Darwinian, the core of evolutionary biology and psychology is survive long enough to reproduce. Well, the reproduction variable, we both have the same survival variable in the sense that, we startle at a loud noise and a bear chasing us scares us, fight or flight, but we're different in the reproductive strategies. Certainly, that's really well documented. Males and females have different dating and mating strategies. Those are driven by very differing instincts. I call them masculine instincts and feminine instincts. So when those are suppressed, squelched, squashed, or just redirected out of necessity or out of kindness, respect, and generosity, it is a diminishment for the male, diminishment of the masculinity. For things that feel unnatural for females to do, that's a diminishment of the femininity. And both of these words are synonymous with what Freud called libido. Here's the magic equation for it all. Libido did not mean sexual appetite to Freud. It meant life force, and it got twisted into this other meaning. It's a life force, or it's a feeling of passion. The word is passion. Libido is passion. Passion for life, passion for another person, passion for your big project, for what you're meant to do on earth, your passion. And when there is a suppression of the normal, natural, unconscious, archetypal, masculine archetypes or masculine instincts, aka feminine archetypes, feminine instincts, aka, did you ever read Women Who Run with the Wolves? That was about all the feminine instincts, just listed out. Or the goddesses in every woman, um, by Jean Shinoda Bolen. That's all the feminine instincts listed out for you in the Jungian terms, of course, but they're real. They exist. So when they're squashed, what does the person feel? More passion for life? More excited to be alive? No, they feel the opposite. They feel more deadened, more suppressed, less existent, less visible. If you've ever felt invisible as a person in a relationship or in a group, or with a friend, that invisibility that you felt of yourself because you were doing something unnatural to your instincts suppressed those instincts and lowered your passion for life. So that's why so many people around the world, male and female, try to please the other sex and do things the other sex wants them to do and says will make them feel good or admiring of or loving of the person. Everyone's doing it for love. Simultaneously, they're lowering their level of excitement for life because they're doing something unnatural to them. And while in the short run, it might temporarily seem to please your partner or cause stability, or mutual generosity, reciprocity. In the end, it's lowering the very substance of or energy, and I don't mean that in a woo-woo way. I mean it as a very real thing. Your charisma, let's say, your joie de vivre, and when that is lowered, you are de facto, generally speaking, maybe not to your specific partner, you're generally less attractive. So there it is. Take that back into the Galloway nearly 3-hour podcast and apply it. The idea that there are masculine and feminine instincts they equal your degree of masculinity and femininity, which equate to each other in the form of the word passion, passion for life, passion for your partner. And if those are squashed, not understood, you're invisible, and you're also less attractive, and you're also less contributory. Because who hasn't taken their passion into a hobby, an art, and just gave it their all while they're working at Starbucks or McDonald's, and they're phoning it in for that. They're not excited about that. You're diverting the very thing that could be applied as a massive energy into your marriage, into your family, into your romance, via your partner. So something to further talk about. I don't know what the final answer is. Maybe to meet somebody that likes doing dishes. Thank you.